Towering majestically and with an aura of mysticism which fostered the ancient Celtic beliefs of its sacred background, Snowdon, at 3,560 feet, or 1,085 meters to its summit, beckons those who search for an unforgettable experience. Nearly a century ago, the Snowdon Mountain Tram Road and Hotels Company Limited made the reality of a mechanical conveyance to the summit of Snowdon when the railway was opened in April 1896. This is how the early intrepid voyagers made the journey. In those days, more concern was shown about the safety of the rolling stock than of the creature comforts of the passengers. The windows had no glass. The only concession to comfort were roller blinds, which, if the winds got too strong, the guard could roll up by remote control. The passengers suffered, but the rolling stock was considered safe. Every engine has its own name and a special history. Locomotive number 1, LADAS, was named after Laura Alice Duff Ashton Smith, but, and so the story goes, the name was too long for such a short engine, and it was impossible to make the engine any longer. Now, nearly 100 years on, with the exception of LADAS, the little engines carry more than 100,000 passengers every year on the only public rack and pinion railway in Britain. For the technical enthusiast, the track of 800mm gauge is fitted with 120mm pitch double-bladed rack to the design of a Swiss engineer, Dr. Roman Abt. The rack and pinion shown here operates on a double rack rail on which the teeth are out of phase. The locomotives themselves have 4 pinions, 2 on each driving axle, which engage the rack teeth, and in this way the locomotive, pushing ahead of it a single coach, pulls itself and its load to the summit. Gradients average 1 in 7.8, with the steepest 1 in 5.5. 7 steam-powered locomotives and 2 diesels undergo a rigid maintenance schedule which ensures a safety record of the highest order. Fireboxes in the steam engines have to be continually tested. Overhauls and, if need be, the complete rebuilding of the engines, some of them still the originals and more than 90 years old, can be done on-site by the company's own staff. Safety-wise, the speed of descent of the locomotive is controlled by counter-pressure braking. By opening and closing the compression valve, the driver regulates the amount of braking effort applied. To prevent the main engine cylinders overheating and to absorb some of the energy generated, water is injected. This cooling water passes through the compression valve and is discharged into the atmosphere as steam through a small exhaust pipe on the roof of the cab. Each carriage also has an automatic speed brake, which is engaged if the speed is in excess of 10 kilometers an hour. From early morning, preparations have been underway, ready for passengers arriving at Llanberis station, excited at the prospect of a holiday trip of a lifetime. For an hour at a steady 10 kilometers an hour, the journey will give them the opportunity of experiencing the magnificent grandeur and the often awesome characteristics of the mountain. As the little powerhouse locomotives make their way to the top, 7.5 kilometers in which there's not a single inch of level track. There is an air of excited expectancy as passengers file into the carriage, which holds a maximum of 59, and the guard. Every move of the train is monitored at the control box at Llanberis. A shrill whistle indicates departure, and as the train pulls out of Llanberis station, passing the engine shed still buzzing with preparations, we are immediately aware of a rapidly changing scenery. After the bridge over the stream in which the train is reflected, we approach a 14-arch viaduct. Alongside is Avon Hook, into which the impressive Cain Mawr waterfall plunges. Immediately after the viaduct, the passenger sees the full glory of the falls, and countless thousands of photographs of this must by now have found a way to all parts of the world. To the left, the passenger has a glimpse of the famous Llanberis slate quarries. From the middle of the last century, these and others like them provided the area with most of its employment and were the basis of North Wales's economy. But nowadays these quarries are disused and unworked for more than 30 years. Then comes the old waterfall halt, but no longer used today as such. To the right and running under the track is a second waterfall of the journey. As a reminder that this was once the home of an ancient community, there stands the ruins of Bishop's house. It was here some 600 years ago that Bishop Goodman administered to the sparse community which inhabited these foothills. It is from here, emerging through the trees which will now be left behind for the rest of the journey, that passengers get their first glimpse of Snowdon's Peak as the train trundles on. Hebron is where the upward train is to wait for the approaching downward train to enter the passing loop. This is the area known as Haverby. The English translation is summer abode. Here is where the sheep and cattle are moved up to the summer grazing, and the mountainside is dotted with ruins of stone-built farmhouses, used only in summer and spring. The name Hebron derives from an old nonconformist chapel nearby, and we are already over 300 meters up. The blockman controls this passing point. Once given the go-ahead, upward and return trains continue at their leisurely pace, allowing passengers to take in the constantly changing patterns. From the downward coach of Enid can be seen the panoramic view of Llanberis and its lovely Lake Padan. Meanwhile, the journey upwards continues over the stark and rocky backbone of Erori, past the rugged peaks and the gently sloping ground. It is already 20 minutes into the journey. Progressing up the longest straight section and silhouetted against the blue sky, with the peak in sight now, the train pushes on doggedly. Occasional puffs of white smoke indicate the hard slog still to come. Ahead lies halfway, and an approaching downward diesel. They will pass on the loop at halfway, which is nearly 500 meters up. Here is the time and place for the water fill-up. The driver checks the oils and moving parts, and the fireman replenishes the firebox. A friendly wave as both trains set off again and the upward climb proceeds. It is here that one can fully appreciate the untamed nature of the rocky surroundings, occasionally muted by grassy slopes which lead down to the valleys below. We are now over 600 meters and approaching Rocky Valley, where fierce winds sweeping from the southwest sometimes force the little trains to take refuge. Today there is no need to stop, for the winds are kind and gentle, and this diesel train continues on its way. Between Rocky Valley and Clogwyn, on the left side, is Cwm Glasbach, perhaps better known to the locals as Cwm Hetia, or in English, the Valley of the Hats. History has it that at the beginning of the railway, when carriages were more open to the elements than later on, the strong southwesterlies almost invariably blew off the hats of lady and gentlemen passengers unaware of the powerful gusts. These landed in Cwm Glasbach, where later they were recovered by the knowledgeable locals and could usually be found on sale at the Saturday market in Carnarvon. As it passes a rocky landmark, a breathtaking kaleidoscope to the northwest reveals again the most impressive view of Llanberis and Llyn Padarn's shimmering waters. This is Clogwyn, 780 metres high, which on a clear day gives an uninterrupted view of the Carneddau, the twin mountains of Dafydd and Llywelyn, of Llgarn and Glyderfawr to the north. Clogwyn is the last halt and passing loop to the summit. Much in evidence here are the walkers and the mountain bikers who still have another 315 metres to go. And the view is back down the Llanberis path, which the walkers take and which crosses the track several times, and also the Llanberis Pass and the road to Carnarvon. Now comes the toughest climb, across the ridge with another 286 metres still to go. Here the train continues over the ridge and above the old copper mines of Clogwyn Coch, the Red Cliff, where more than a century ago copper ore was mined. Also at the foot of the cliff can be seen the small lake whose blue and red tinted water indicates the continuing presence of copper. As the train rounds the bend, it seems to perch precariously on the edge of a precipice. This looks on to Clogwyn Dyrarddw, which means on the precipice, and down the valley of Cwm Brno towards Moel Cynghorion, where, it is said, the ancient princes of Wales held council. With a final warning whistle to walkers on the last leg of their 2 to 3 hours climb, the train enters the final lap, and with a triumphant blast and a cloud of steam, Enid gently pushes its coach load into the summit platform. The hour's journey can now show its worth. A half-hour stop provides the passengers with the most exhilarating views. On a clear day, the peak offers an unsurpassed vista of the Snowdonia Range. Across the Irish Sea, one may pick out the Wicklow Mountains of Ireland. The weather-wise guards warn, however, that to see the Isle of Man means rain on the morrow. At the top also are the benefits of a cafe, a souvenir shop, and the highest official post box in Britain, where cards may be posted and specially franked with a Snowdon stamp. But that is by no means the end of a captivating journey. There is the equally fascinating return at the same measured pace, when sights missed on the upward journey can be savoured. Since those distant days of the beginning, almost a century ago, these sturdy little steam engines have made their way across the 50 million years old backbone of Erory, in English, the abode of the eagle. As the trains huff and puff into Llanberis station, where passengers for the next journey have been queuing up, the satisfaction on the faces of old and young alike bear testimony to a trip of a lifetime. And looking back up the track which transports body and soul into the realms of silence and beauty, truly the abode of the eagle, one has a sense of achievement. The dream of a mechanical way to the summit had become a reality, a tribute to those pioneers who built the railway and those men and women who still operate it today.